Group 2 practice, Homestead-Miami Speedway for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Last week in Vegas, pretty good for Ford as a manufacturer. Put 4 cars inside the top 10. 3 in the top 12 right now. Among them, Sheldon Creed, who's 12th on the board.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Homestead-Miami Speedway. We're going to get started with today's pre-race media availabilities. We're now joined by Josh Berry, driver of the number 21 Wood Brothers Racing Ford. If you have a question for Josh, please raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. We'll start up front with Holly and then go to Cameron.
Hi, congratulations again to you. I wanted to ask you, so having gotten that win so early in the season, how different is it for you to feel like you can you guys can, I'm assuming maybe experiment a little more, or how, and how optimistic are you that there are going to be multiple wins beyond? In other words, was it such a lift off you that now you feel like this, I don't know, freedom is the right word, but, you know, able to go on and really do some more stuff here before the playoffs?
Well, I mean, I think initially, I think it's obviously a weight off your shoulders, right? You know, aside from maybe the guys that you would consider to be the, you know, real championship favorites, you know, the majority of the garage's biggest goal in a season is to make the playoffs, right, and get a win. So to accomplish that, it's a big weight off our shoulders. I think it kind of validates a lot of the things that we're doing and we've done over the offseason to prepare and start this season and be competitive. I feel like, you know, really, you know, 3 out of the first 5 races, I would say we were, you know, super competitive and in the mix. So I think for us, we're just going to try to, you know, continue that trend and keep doing the things that we're doing. And I feel like, you know, if you would have looked at the schedule from my point, I mean, Phoenix and Vegas were probably 2 of the biggest question marks I had going into this. You know, obviously the Penske cars have been really strong at those places, but I didn't have great results there last year. So going into this, you know, next stretch of schedule, right, I think there's a lot of good tracks coming up for us and a lot of tracks that I ran pretty well at last year. So I think there should be more opportunities.
Cameron Richardson, NASCAR.com. Josh, how has the last week been doing the media rounds and sort of embracing the spotlight and maybe stepping out of your comfort zone while also on top of, you know, celebrating this milestone for you?
Yeah, no, it's been good. Obviously, it's been a busy week. You know, talked to a lot of people, got to, you know, did plenty of podcasts and interviews. Taylor over there kept me pretty busy this week. But, you know, honestly, it was all good. And the best thing about it all is I feel like we were able to complete everything, you know, on the competition side that we wanted to make sure we're prepared for this weekend. And, yeah, winning a cup race is a big deal, right? Like I definitely felt that over the course of the week. But, you know, I'm excited to get here and get back to racing.
All right, we'll go next to Tim.
Josh, Tim Kettle, Family Motor Racing Network. Can you elaborate a little bit on what went into that throwback paint scheme that you released, that your team released a few weeks ago for Darlington coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly just it's an amazing story, right? When you go to drive for the Wood Brothers, you get story after story after story of the history and the things that they've done. And that, you know, the Jim Clark Indianapolis 500 win is something that came up pretty often. And I think that throwback was, you know, it's been in the works for a while, right? But to me, the biggest thing is you know, Leonard, when we unveiled that Thursday, Leonard, basically his exact words were more or less like that was one of the best memories that he ever had in racing. And I think that shows you how cool it really is and what it means to them to, you know, have that relationship with Ford and go to the Indianapolis 500 and obviously pit the car and win it. But the effort and the ingenuity that Leonard himself and those guys had into that win, you know, makes it a really special moment for them. So it's awesome to be able to honor that.
All right, we'll go to Deb and then Jordan.
Deb Williams, Auto Week. Congratulations, Josh. This is the first time I've had a chance to congratulate you. A lot of people have talked about the fact that Christopher Bell got to stop in a teammate's pit last week when he knew the left front was loose. And there has been brought up that with you being a quote-unquote single-car team, because of the alliance with Penske, have you talked about, or has the teams talked about, or would you be able to stop in another Penske team pit if you needed to get a wheel tightened?
I would think so. We haven't had any specific conversation about it, but generally I feel like NASCAR kind of clarified the rules and what the expectations are, and I feel like that, you know, the biggest thing is we want to keep the wheels on these race cars, right? And honestly, I feel like the majority of pit road, if someone was in that situation, you're still going to get a penalty, right? Whether it's under yellow or green, you're going to get a penalty. So honestly, I feel like really most of us could probably stop in most people's boxes and they would help us out. And I mean, the biggest thing is it's just, you hope that, you know, if you're in that situation, somebody would help you and then, you know, you'll return the favor, right? So, I mean, a lot's been made out of it, but honestly, the biggest thing is it's a safety issue. We want to keep the wheels on. We want to keep the, you know, the gas cans and on pit road and things like that. It's just a unique scenario, and honestly, it was a pretty heads-up move from the 20 team.
Thank you.
From Bianchi, the Athletic, what's the art of saving tires in the Cup Series?
I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard balance in Cup racing, I feel like, because obviously track position is so important. But I think the biggest thing is you just got to play to the strengths of your car, and if you're in the position to you manage that a little bit, then it seems to pay off in the long run. I mean, just being smooth, giving up a little bit on entry, you know, giving up a little bit on exit, and just making sure that you're just trying to, you know, not slide the tires, keep the car underneath of you, and be smooth.
How do you know then when to kind of like go, like we're not going to back off anymore, we're going to kind of go for it? Is that when everyone else kind of comes back to you? Is there just a moment when your car, is there a lap number in your head? Like how does that?
I think from my personal experience, and I think back to my years of racing short tracks, like a lot of times if you're saying you're going to go 90%, really by the end of the run, your 90% kind of ends up being your 100%. Like I've never been one that's like, okay, I'm gonna be patient here, and then now I'm gonna go, right? Like a lot of times when you go slower than when you were just being patient. So I think it's just at these places, it's about just staying under the limit of the tire a little bit, and a lot of times towards the end of the run, you don't really do anything different. Just people start seeming to come back to you.
Okay, we'll go to Steve next.
Steve Schweitzer with the Lasco Press. Congratulations on your win. You said last week that you didn't see the win changing the way that you had got about facing what you do strategy in the upcoming races. Under this playoff format, we've seen how important every single playoff point is. Say you're faced with a situation where you were going to pit just before the pits closed at the end of a stage, but so many people did that you had a shot at the stage win. You know, would that be enough to say, boy, we ought to stay out and get this extra playoff point under the circumstances?
Yeah, I think that'll give us some flexibility, and a lot of times that just kind of depends on how you're running, right? I think to me, my personal opinion, even going back to Xfinity racing, right? Like I feel like if you feel like you have a car that can go out and win the race, I think you got to call the race that way, and that's how I approach it, right? So, but if you don't, you know, maybe if you're 10th, 15th place, right, and you have the opportunity to get potentially a playoff point, but even some more stage points, you know, I think that opens up the door for that for sure.
Steve Post next.
Steve Post, Motor Racing Network. Josh, one of the things that Phoenix and Las Vegas have shown is you guys have had a good Saturday as well as a good Sunday. So 20 minutes of practice today, what would make it a good Saturday? What are you going to be looking like? What are you going to be looking at for your car that when we get done with this practice session, you guys feel like you're able to continue that trend with a good Saturday, a good start to the weekend? Yeah,
I think for practice for us, I mean, not necessarily worried as much about the speed of the car, of just how it drives. If it stays pretty consistent over the course of the run, I think, for me, it's important to be able to, be pretty versatile here, being able to run the bottom, the middle to the top, maybe not, I don't see myself focusing that heavily on just running the wall the entire practice. Like I want to be able to run multiple lanes because I feel like that becomes so important at times in these races. So really just focus on that and just kind of trust your instinct about how the car feels. And if it drives good, usually most of the time if it drives good and feels good, then you race good. And then obviously qualifying is an important part of this. I mean, I think for us, we want to be in the top 10. We've been able to do that the last couple of weeks, and qualified 11th here last year, which gives me some optimism as well. And hopefully we can execute that today.
Go to Zach, Greg, and then Dustin.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com, Josh. 11th here in October. A couple finishes around the same area in Xfinity competition too. What's your perspective on this place, and do you see this track as a kind of a differentiator in driver talent because drivers have more options here?
I don't know. I mean, obviously I've liked Homestead, and honestly the Xfinity results really never were indicative of how we ran. I felt like we ran better than we finished, and then last year in the Cup car I thought it was a really solid race. Yeah, I mean, I think you obviously see the guys that can run the wall a little bit better than others, that are a little bit more committed to it. And then some of us see it, like I said a minute ago, right? Like that you need to be a little bit more versatile and be able to run different lanes. So everybody kind of has their own strategy. But I feel like whenever we see tire wear and things like we see here, really the cars that drive good and stay underneath of you for a long run really show out just as much as the driver's talent.
Over here, Josh. Excuse me, Greg Engel, Cupscene.com. Thanks for coming, but two questions. One, what's it like to, beyond the strategy or anything, what's it like to come to a track for the first time as a NASCAR Cup winner?
Yeah, no, it's been cool. I mean, I'm obviously still kind of soaking that part of it in, right, getting started here at Homestead. But yeah, it's just winning races in the Cup Series is a big deal, and it's so incredibly difficult, right? So I'm not taking that moment for granted. But, at the same time, I want to keep pushing forward and keep getting better and have more opportunities at this, right? So I don't feel like this is the last one. I don't think that Sunday was considered probably an upset, at least, but not a fluke with how we've been running. And I feel like we can, keep getting better and keep pushing forward and have other opportunities.
And you're right, it was far from a fluke. Along those same lines, I'm kind of surprised that you wouldn't consider yourself a favorite, if not to go deep into the playoffs, if not win it all. I mean, you're winning, you're having consistent finishes, you've got the support of the team that won the championship last year. Why won't you consider yourself a contender to go deep or all the way in the playoffs?
Well, I think for me, it's an experience side of things, right? Like taking all this in for the first time, right? I just won my first race Sunday, so experiencing that was a big deal. But I don't know. I've just never been one as a driver to, be real specific with setting goals or, because really your performance on track is really, and how you feel like it's going is what really matters to you most personally, right? I mean, you can run well and, have a mistake on pit road and not get the finish, but you still ran well, right? Like, so to me, it's just, I've always had the most success of just taking it week to week and preparing the best I can each week and taking that approach and not necessarily worry about as much of the finishes, but more so how you run. And I think if we can establish that and be more competitive and upfront and have good Saturdays and race well, that, the opportunities are going to come. And once you get in the playoffs, really, I haven't dove deep into the schedule and what we think. I'm sure Miles has done more so of that, but really the first couple rounds are just about execution, really, more than anything from what I watch, right? Like if you can just go out and have solid races, get stage points, finish, don't have the big issue, we most definitely be able to be in contention to advance through the rounds.
We'll take our final question from Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Josh, you've had different crew chiefs each of the last few seasons that you've been with different teams. How has that experience maybe helped you in working with the new crew chief with Miles this year? And what more do you guys still have to work through? Because it's only been a few races, even with getting a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. And honestly, over the last couple years or a few years, I feel like that's something that's kind of been difficult, I think, to manage. Obviously, I've got a lot of experience working with a bunch of different guys, and when we went through the process of talking, with Miles, and it gave me a lot of specific points of what I was looking for out of him, and what worked for me and what didn't work for me or whatever. But it's definitely tough when you going up against guys that have been together 3 or 4 years now, and they have 7, 8 races at each one of these tracks working with each other. They know they're able to it comes a little easier to be able to fine tune and focus on certain things that you want from your race car. So, I'm excited. That's why this start of the season is so important to us, to just kind of take it week by week and just build and learn. And, not every race is probably going to go perfect, but we've been off to a really good start. And I'm excited to keep working with him as, we progress through the summer here.
Every points race so far this season has been won by a driver with the last name of B. What is it behind you, all you guys?
I don't know. It's just a funny stat, funny coincidence. But I guess if you have a B, your last name starting with B, you're feeling pretty good this weekend at least.
If not you, who's the next B that wins?
Ryan Blaney. He's been super fast really every week, just kind of had some misfortune, and he's obviously been a great teammate to me. And so I'd say he's most definitely in line to get one sooner or later.
Josh, thanks for coming in, and good luck this weekend.
Thank y'all.